Object-oriented programming. The purpose of writing a program is to solve problems. Solving a problem consists of multiple activities. You need to understand the problem, design the solution, consider the alternatives, and refine the solution, implement the solution, and test the solution, which of course is important. These activities are not purely linear. They overlap and interact. The key to designing a solution is breaking it down into manageable pieces. When writing software, we design separate pieces that are responsible for certain parts of the solution. An object-oriented approach lends itself to this kind of solution decomposition. We will dissect our solution into pieces called objects and classes. Java is an object-oriented programming language. As the term implies, an object is a fundamental entity in a Java program. Objects can be used effectively to represent real-world entities. For instance, an object might represent a particular employee in a company. Each employee object handles the processing and data management related to that employee. An object has state behaviors. The state of the bank account includes its account number and its current balance. Behaviors associated with the bank account include the ability to make a deposit or make withdrawals. Note that the behavior of an object might change its state. An object is defined by a class. A class is the blueprint of an object. A class uses methods to define behaviors of an object. The class that contains the main method of a Java program itself represents the entire program. The class represents a concept, and the object represents the embodiment of that concept. Multiple objects can be created for the same class. A class is a blueprint. One blueprint to create several similar but different houses. Objects and classes. So a class is the concept, and then the object is the realization. A class is a concept, and the object is the realization of that object. So you'll have a bank account class, and then that class is then used to create objects, an object to represent John's bank account, an object to represent Bill's bank account, and an object to represent Mary's bank account. Inheritance. One class can be used to derive another class via inheritance. Classes can be organized into hierarchies where you have an account and then a charge account, a bank account, savings account, checking account. So essentially this checking account will inherit attributes and behaviors from any of its parents, either its direct parent or its grandparent. In object-oriented programming, we can write a class that is going to represent something, right? For instance, I can write a class for, just say this is for a video game, so I can write a class for an enemy. This is essentially a blueprint for an enemy. Now, some of the attributes of this enemy or the states of this enemy can be like his health and perhaps his damage output. So like just say he has like a damage ratio or like a damage output, just something that's going to be a factor of how much damage he's going to do to you. So behaviors of this enemy would be that this enemy will be able to attack, and the enemy can also receive damage. So we write this class, we define some states, define some behaviors, and then what we can do is we can make objects from this class, from this enemy class. Okay. Now, one thing perhaps we should also have here, the name of the enemy. Like, our enemies can have different names. So when we create an object of this class, we can just have, an enemy named Goblin. And his health would be, just say, like 50. And his damage that he gives, like his damage ratio, 10% of your health. And then with this same class, we can define a different enemy to say, like, this is a bat, like in a video game, like a bat that flies around, and the health of this bat is 10, and the damage that he gives is 1%. Okay. Then you say you come across a vampire, and this vampire will have a health of, let's say, 100. Difficult to beat. We'll say every time he attacks, he takes about 25% of your health. So creating this class here from this one class where we defined all this information, we're able to generate these objects. Okay, so in Java, these objects will be off living inside of memory once they're instantiated. So the goblin might be living there, the bat will be living like over here, and the vampire will be living here. So the idea or the concept of object-oriented programming is that you define this blueprint here that is going to define characteristics and behaviors, and then you can reuse this for your goblin, for your bat, and for your vampire.